Hello, my name is Brett Sears, and I am a transportation planner and project manager working for WSP, the consulting firm working with the City of Peterborough on the Transportation Master Plan. I am here today to share an update with you and to invite you to comment on strategies to help the Peterborough community achieve its vision for transportation. This presentation has 6 parts. First, I will review the purpose of the presentation. Second, I will describe the project timeline. Next, I will highlight the work completed to date on the project. Then I will discuss the needs and opportunities based on an analysis of existing and future transportation conditions. Following this, we will present potential strategies to help address transportation challenges. And finally, I will conclude with the next steps. To begin, the presentation purpose. In this presentation, we seek to summarize work completed to date regarding the vision, objectives, and performance criteria, present existing conditions, future growth, and future business as usual scenarios, describe possible outcomes of a business as usual approach to travel, identify potential strategy options to address future needs and opportunities, and gather feedback on the directions for the strategies. Now I will discuss the project phases and timeline. We are conducting this project under the Municipal Class Environmental Assessment process for master plans. There are 5 project-specific phases of the work plan. Presently, we are concluding Phase 2, where we consider current and future challenges with travel and are moving into the development of strategies that are part of Phase 3. We intend to report to Council with our progress in November and complete the final report by March of 2022. Next, I would like to remind you of the work completed to date. Thank you to the many of you who have provided valuable feedback to help craft the vision statement for this Transportation Master Plan. The draft vision was presented to Council in April 2021. After discussion and some edits, Council approved the following vision statement, which reads, "As the city grows, Peterborough's transportation network will be enhanced to create a low-emissions, responsive system where people of all ages and abilities can move safely, sustainably, and efficiently, no matter how they choose to travel, today and in the future." Council also approved the 5 objectives for the Transportation Master Plan after some discussion in April of 2021. The 5 objectives are focused on 1. Travel choices, 2. Community building, 3. Safe livable communities, 4. Climate mitigation and the natural environment, and 5. Economic and financial. A total of 34 performance criteria have been identified to use in the evaluation of alternatives. These criteria are used primarily in 3 ways. 1. For strategies, citywide analysis of network-wide alternatives. 2. For projects, project-level analysis of individual corridors and street segments. And 3. To monitor, for the city to collect future data once the Transportation Master Plan is completed to monitor progress toward the objectives. In this presentation, we are focused on criteria that can be used to help analyze strategies. Council has identified 4 criteria that should be treated as priorities for completing the Transportation Master Plan. These include travel mode shift, safe transportation systems, reduced capital maintenance costs, and meeting climate change mitigation targets. Phase 3 of the Transportation Master Plan will focus on strategic approaches to achieve travel mode shift and climate change mitigation goals, those priorities of Council. Phases 4 and 5 of the Transportation Master Plan We'll examine safety improvement projects and policies, as well as opportunities to reduce capital and maintenance costs. We are now going to talk about the needs and opportunities for travel in Peterborough. We do this to help establish a baseline condition on which we can compare the performance of future strategies. Peterborough is expected to grow in population between now and the year 2051. Some growth is expected in the downtown and existing developed areas, and there is also growth forecast in some of the areas further from the center of town. In fact, the population of Peterborough is expected to increase 50% from current levels to the year 2051. Now, this growth will not happen overnight, but is forecast to occur in the next 30 years. Jobs are also expected to grow in the amount of 30% more than current levels. Job growth is expected to be distributed throughout the city. The distribution of jobs and population provides some benefits to travel if a person can live and work in locations that are relatively close together. We have examined current travel patterns and forecast travel patterns for the year 2051. If the transportation network followed a business as usual approach, traffic congestion during the morning peak travel hour would be expected to increase. The afternoon peak travel hour typically is the busiest travel hour of the day. These maps show more locations in the city of existing congestion compared to the morning peak hour. Additional locations are expected to emerge by 2051 if we follow a business as usual approach. If business is as usual, the future mode share will be similar to today's. Measures to encourage a shift in travel behavior will be needed if we want to reduce the amount of congestion or the need for road widening. If business is as usual, the total kilometers of travel and greenhouse gas emissions from transportation would be expected to increase. Measures to encourage a shift in travel behavior will also be needed if we want to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases emitted from community travel. If business is as usual, the total time that vehicles are driven would be expected to increase by the year 2051. Likewise, the amount of time in congestion would increase, as shown on the bar graphs on the right. Even with business as usual, transit ridership would be expected to increase modestly per capita. Considering a 50% increase in population, ridership in general will increase, and more investment will be needed in transit, simply to accommodate population growth. Considering transit trips taken in congestion, if business is as usual, the length of transit routes operating within congestion will increase. Congestion impacts transit reliability and travel times, making it harder to attract new ridership and harder to encourage a shift in travel behavior. We believe that continuing on a business as usual basis will not achieve Council's priorities, and that measures to encourage a shift in travel behavior are critical to achieving the vision for transportation in the year 2051. For instance, on Council's priority to shift travel modes, business as usual would be expected to result in minimal change in behavior from today. If we want to achieve safer transportation systems, the increased travel and congestion caused from a business as usual approach would negatively impact safety. Similarly, reduced capital and maintenance costs from a business as usual approach would be expected to actually result in increased auto travel, and the congestion will increase the need for road widening or increase the wear and tear and make maintenance more costly on the road network. And in terms of meeting climate change mitigation goals, the increased auto travel and congestion will increase emissions and make meeting those goals more and more challenging. So as I had mentioned, we believe measures to encourage a shift in travel behavior will be critical to achieving the vision and these four priorities for the transportation in the year 2051. I now will speak about potential strategies to encourage a shift in travel mode. Strategies can be made up of one or more themes and one or more elements. We have developed a number of elements for the themes of walking and cycling, transit, driving, and policy. The cycling themes are taken specifically from the city's cycling master plan. The active transportation elements, which generally address walking, rolling, or cycling, look at investments in the sidewalk network and cycling network. The cycling elements include new facilities, as well as supportive policies, programs, and other measures to supplement and enhance the infrastructure. The transit elements are designed to help result in meaningful mode shift. Travel behavior is habitual, and to get travelers to change habits, we may need big ideas. The auto-focused elements range from safety improvements to the street network, to new or widened streets, intersection improvements, or emerging technologies like connected or automated vehicles, and road improvements that primarily are focused on transit services, such as queue jump lanes, transit signal priority, or even transit dedicated lanes. Policies can play an important role in shifting travel behavior, adjusting land use, charging for traveling to certain places or at certain times, charging more for parking, or expanding where paid parking is required are some possible policy interventions. We have conducted some preliminary analyses of select elements to see if individual elements would be expected to provide a shift in travel behavior. We looked at 3 transit elements in isolation to see what types of modal splits for transit we might expect to achieve. While doubling the frequency of transit, or increasing the speed, or making transit free to ride, by themselves are big initiatives, they may not be enough to make an appreciable difference in the mode split for transit. Even adding some of these initiatives together may not be enough. We need to consider other elements to make a comprehensive strategy. For our preliminary assessment of cycling, we have looked at cities both within Ontario and outside, including Victoria, British Columbia, 2 examples from the United States, and 2 examples from Scandinavia. This has been combined work between the Transportation Master Plan and the Cycling Master Plan. These cities were chosen because they have similarities with Peterborough and also have aspirations similar to Peterborough's aspiration for its future modal split for cycling. We do note that the 2 examples from Scandinavia have extensive dedicated networks for pedestrians and cyclists for 600 kilometers of networks in the Finland example and 400 kilometers of network in the Sweden example. Delving deeper into the elements that affect a shift in travel, specifically for cycling, we notice that communities with high cycling rates tend to have one or more of the following: favorable climate, extensive bike networks, higher population density, and a strong bicycle culture and support programs. We believe that a multifaceted approach with multiple elements will be needed to help achieve the vision for the Transportation Master Plan for more sustainable modes of transportation. This slide also is showing the options considered as part of the Cycling Master Plan and showing the desired modal split for cycling that we hope to achieve. If a sole element is likely to not result in significant travel behavior change, what combination of elements might work? This section of the presentation addresses possible hybrid strategies. We would like your feedback on which strategy resonates with you the most, and if you think the strategy could be adjusted to better meet the vision for future travel. Given the elements of strategies that we have already presented, there could be 450 combinations to make strategies. We would now like to shift the conversation to identify a more manageable number of strategies to meet travel needs. We are describing 5 in this presentation and seek your feedback on these. The 5 hybrid strategies have been developed by our project team, and they include various combinations of elements with a different emphasis in each strategy. Each hybrid strategy has been developed to achieve various levels of shift in travel behavior. You will notice in the top right-hand corner on the strategy slides the expected or desired modal split between the different modes of transportation. Based on the testing of various elements to date and our experience from other jurisdictions, the elements within each hybrid strategy have been combined in order to achieve those modal split goals. After obtaining input from people like yourselves and other stakeholders on the 5 hybrid strategies, the project team will complete an evaluation of the various hybrid strategies to determine how well they achieve the vision and objectives already presented during this presentation that make up this Transportation Master Plan. The recommended hybrid strategy will be used to guide the next steps of the Transportation Master Plan, including recommendations for capital projects, policies, investments, and priorities for implementation. The first hybrid strategy includes a number of elements from different modes of travel. On the top right-hand corner, we have listed the modal split we believe would be achieved using this strategy. You will notice that as we progress through the strategies, the modal split changes, with travel by car decreasing and travel by other modes increasing. Each strategy is presented on 2 slides to adequately describe the different elements that the strategy contains. Hybrid Strategy 1 contains improvements to all modes of travel, but will not be as aggressive as the following strategies. In Hybrid Strategy 1, walking improvements would be focused on the downtown and adjacent neighborhoods, with moderate investment in expanding the sidewalk network and filling in missing segments along transit routes. Cycling will be in line with the continue scenario from the Cycling Master Plan, which will require about 20 kilometers of new cycling infrastructure expanded gradually, with a higher focus on recreational trail connections for cycling and walking and rolling, and to a lesser extent, improving on road cycling infrastructure and filling in missing sidewalks on key arterial road corridors to build a modest network of connected routes. Regarding transit for Hybrid Strategy 1, transit ridership would be increased due to implementation of the new transit network and general growth in population and in general growth in students. Road improvements would include intersection and safety improvements, plus widening of existing roads or building new arterial or collector roads. Measures to optimize the performance of signalized intersections and major corridors would continue with the intent to improve traffic flow and defer or delay the need for widening. Building on Hybrid Strategy 1 is Hybrid Strategy number 2. Walking would be focused on the downtown and adjacent neighborhoods with moderate investment in expanding the sidewalk network and filling in missing segments along transit routes. Cycling would be in line with the accelerate scenario from the cycling master plan, including emphasis on completing new on-road routes to create a basic network of all ages and all abilities facilities that combines on-road and new and existing trails to provide coverage to most areas of the city. The accelerate scenario also includes programming to encourage cycling usage. For hybrid strategy 2 regarding transit ridership would increase due to the implementation of the new transit network designed for the future population growth to best service the areas of that growth, and recognizing the general growth in population and the growth in students. Road network improvements would include intersection and safety improvements, plus widening of existing roads or building new arterial or collector roads. However, projects that include safety improvements and new cycling infrastructure would be prioritized. Measures to optimize the performance of signalized intersections and major corridors would continue with the intent to improve traffic flow and defer or delay the need for widening. Hybrid Strategy 3 combines assertive elements to help create a better balance between modes of travel. Walking improvements will be focused on the downtown, adjacent neighborhoods, and an aggressive program of investment in expanding the sidewalk network in existing built-up neighborhoods and filling in missing segments along transit routes. Cycling investment would be in line with the accelerate scenario from the cycling master plan, including emphasis on completing new on-road routes to create a basic network of all ages and all abilities facilities that combines on-road and new or existing trails to provide coverage in most areas of the city. This strategy also includes policy interventions regarding parking regulations, as parking costs would increase in the downtown and paid parking could expand beyond the downtown. For Hybrid Strategy 3, transit would be expected to increase 43% in service hours and improve frequency of service and measures to improve the speed of transit service on a number of key corridors. Policies to support transit, such as increased parking costs in the downtown, as mentioned on the previous slide, would be implemented. Strategic road network improvements will be made with a limited road network expansion. Improved safety or support for enhanced transit travel times will be prioritized. Intersection improvements and other measures to optimize roadway performance will be implemented on key corridors in the city to defer the need for widening in order to reduce delays and emissions while improving transit priority at signalized intersections. Widening or new roads would only be considered after implementing optimization measures first, or to support improved transit access and transit travel times, or in areas where regular fixed transit route service cannot be provided. Hybrid Strategy 4, labeled the Transform Strategy, uses aggressive investments in walking and cycling, plus big moves in transit for increased frequency and reduced fares. Road network improvements rely on optimization of the network. Policy interventions help achieve travel behavior change, such as an adjusted approach to land use by limiting future planned growth in greenfield areas of the city and redirecting this growth into built-up areas along arterial and collector road networks, where intensification and higher densities would be required. Walking improvements would include an extensive investment in new sidewalk improvements all across the city, particularly in the downtown, new growth areas, and along major intensification corridors and transit routes. Cycling investment would be aligned with the Spark scenario, with a large investment in cycling routes with 160 kilometers of new facilities, including an emphasis on completing new on-road routes to create an extensive connected, all ages, all abilities network of on-road facilities throughout the city, combined with an expansion of the off-road trail system as well. Hybrid strategy number 4, transform, would also include an aggressive shift for transit with a 71% increase in service hours and significantly improving the speed of transit service and providing enhanced frequency on numerous routes. Policies to support transit, such as increasing parking costs in the downtown and in other key intensification corridors, limiting the supply of new parking, and expanding the number of residents eligible for subsidized transit passes would be implemented. Strategic road improvements would be focused on improving transit performance and cycling, such as adding separated cycling facilities on all major collector and arterial roads. A smart signal or connected autonomous vehicle program would be implemented across the city to reduce delays and emissions while improving transit and connected vehicle priority at signalized intersections. Hybrid strategy 5 is the most aggressive strategy in terms of seeking the greatest shift away from driving to more sustainable modes of travel. This strategy focuses on the most aggressive elements and the greatest aspirations for changing travel behavior. Investments in transportation will be made with a view of achieving the city's greenhouse gas emissions targets, both corporately and in the broader community. This strategy would entail an adjusted approach to land use to limit approved and planned growth in greenfield areas of the city and redirecting this growth into built-up areas along arterial and collector road corridors where intensification beyond provincial targets would be required. Cycling would be aligned with the SPARK scenario from the Cycling Master Plan. Walking improvements would include an extensive investment in new sidewalks with existing built-up areas, and that would be implemented all across the city, particularly in the downtown, new growth areas, and along major intensification and transit corridors. A smart signal connected autonomous vehicle program would be implemented across the city to reduce delays and emissions while improving transit and connected vehicle priority at signalized intersections. For Hybrid Strategy 5, our climate focus, an aggressive transit investment plan is proposed to increase service hours up to 120% of current levels, combined with strong policy measures, such as significantly increased parking costs or congestion charges and limiting the supply of parking in the downtown. A broad-based transit charge on property tax bills to support unlimited access to use the transit service has been included. A complete replacement of the transit fleet to 100% zero-emission buses will be achieved, it is proposed, over a 10-year horizon. Road improvements would only be considered for rehabilitation of existing infrastructure to incorporate safety improvements or to add separated cycling facilities on all major collector and arterial roads, or to support enhanced transit services. Road diets may be implemented on certain corridors to implement dedicated road space for cycling or transit lanes. A road diet would be reducing lanes for vehicles and replacing that space with lanes for cycling or transit. A smart signal or a connected autonomous vehicle program, as described on the previous slide, would be implemented across the city in an effort to reduce delays and emissions while also improving transit and connected vehicle priority at signalized intersections. I thank you for your attention to this point and would like to, at this time, conclude the presentation with a final slide regarding next steps. For our next steps, we will be reviewing your comments and comments from other stakeholders in order to finalize our hybrid strategies. We will then move on to determine an order of magnitude costs and benefits for each strategy. This will allow us to assess and evaluate each hybrid strategy against the performance criteria and council priorities shown earlier in this presentation. Then we will develop a recommended hybrid strategy to guide the next steps of the Transportation Master Plan, including recommendations for capital projects, policies, investments, and priorities for implementation. We will conduct 2 live public information centers to present these same materials. These events will be virtually online using a Zoom platform and will be held Wednesday, August the 11th, the first session beginning at noon and the second session beginning at 7 p.m. Each session will contain the same information. These sessions will be recorded so that if you're not able to attend live, you can always go back and listen to the presentation and listen to the question and answer period at the end of each presentation. I would like to invite you to complete the online survey for this phase of engagement. The survey will be active from Friday, August the 6th through Friday, August the 20th. We expect to come back to you shortly in the fall with Phase 3 engagement activities. Thank you for your attention to this presentation, and thank you for your active participation in the City of Peterborough Transportation Master Plan.